Welcome to this episode of Small Bike Stuff. This time we are in Bangkok interviewing Dana. Dana lives in Bangkok. He's been in Southeast Asia, Thailand for almost a decade, and he is a motorcycle rider, specifically a small bike rider. Dana has had both a Suzuki Raider 150 when he first arrived, and he then upgraded to Honda Grom 125. It's a pretty cool bike. He's used it for quite a few long distance trips, and he's even got 14-inch wheels on the thing. Now, if you want to hear what life is really like on two wheels, if you live in Thailand, this is the video to watch. Dana's super interesting. He's got his own YouTube channel, Idea Studio BKK. I'll throw a link in the description. Please go and check out his videos. Some of the most interesting videos about Bangkok and Thailand that you'll ever see. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the interview, and we'll see you next time on Small Bike Stuff. Don't forget to drop a like, comment below, and let us know what you think of Dana's experiences. Maybe you relate, maybe you don't. Subscribe if you can. We'll see you next time.
How's it going? My name's Dana Bluen. I'm 44 years old, originally from a tiny little place in America called Rhode Island, and I've lived in Thailand for 10 years. My motorcycle sort of journey, as it is, I guess technically started in the US with like curiosity, especially from a small bike perspective. But in America, there's not really the infrastructure for riding small bikes. We have limited options, and like I would more rent it on vacation, rent one on vacation somewhere and ride. But when I moved to Thailand, you have the opportunity to live on a small bike. And I jumped on that as soon as I got here. When I first got to Asia, I remember being blown away by the amount of bikes on the road, and just, there's one right now. Yeah. So just blown away by the amount of bikes that you would encounter. Because in America, if you see a motorcycle, it's like random. Like, oh, maybe you see a couple guys out riding or one guy. And it was clearly a primary mode of transportation here, and that just stuck to me, and I loved it. My first bike here was a Suzuki Raider 150, 2014 model, 2013 model, and probably not the best first bike to have. A bike like the Suzuki Raider, 150cc, 6-speed manual, it's fine to ride in traffic if you're an experienced rider. If you're not, it is quite difficult to get the hang of, especially first and second gear are so short. And that bike has way too much power for what it is. And as a new rider who had never ridden an manual before and had only ridden automatics in the States on like vacation towns, and then I get on a 150 6-speed that's meant for racing essentially, and I learned to ride on that bike. Like I picked it up from the dealership and learned to ride after watching a handful of YouTube videos. So not the best first bike. So I would say like hardcore, like 10 years essentially riding bikes in Thailand. And like I said, from 9.5, like 2013 until now. Small bikes are king here for sure. You get on the road, 99% of the bikes you see are small displacement bikes, either automatics, manuals, or semis. In the US, a small bike would be like a 500cc. Like people call those starter bikes in America. Like, oh, you got a 500, that's a starter bike. When are you gonna get a big bike, a real bike? Yeah. You know, a 1350 Harley but you don't, that's not a thing here. Like 125 is a common displacement. This is my Honda 2015 Honda MSX 125 with a few modifications to it. I picked this bike for a number of reasons. Despite being a massive human, by any standard, this small bike ergonomically is really good for me. It's got a very upright seating position, which is great for urban riding. The handlebars are a little bit higher. And I tried a bunch of different bikes, and I really just loved the fit on this bike, the ergonomics, and sort of the practicality of it. So this bike is definitely not stock, and it's very easy to upgrade here. Like you said, it's made here. A lot of the parts are made here, and a lot of the aftermarket companies are here. So it's incredibly affordable to make upgrades and easy. So first thing I ever really did was throw the axle sliders on it. Just in case I were to drop it, because I do tend to make some stupid riding choices and be like, hey, that dirt road looks like I could get over it with this Grom, or this MSX as we call it here in Thailand. I threw the top box with the rack on the back. Very quickly realized that the stock suspension isn't good for a 120 kilo guy. So upgraded to YSS suspension front and rear. And then as I start to take longer trips with this bike, the 12-inch wheels, which are amazing in the city and make it incredibly nimble, were starting to show their limitations out on the road. And when my buddy Chris and I rode the entire length of Sukhumvit over 3 days down to the Cambodian border, I really realized, like, hey, these 12-inch wheels are a bit rough. So I swapped them out for Racing Boy 14-inch wheels with some Pirelli tires, and it has made the world of difference. Those 2 inches are just, it puts the bike up a little bit higher, and it just rides so much smoother. But to do that, then I also had to re-gear it, because I was once we swapped the wheels, I could only go like 60 kilometers an hour, and obviously the speedometer was way off. So I brought it back to the shop, and they re-geared it for me, and now I can hit like 100, not easily, but like, you know, I can get up to 60 fairly easily, and then like I can spend a half a day to go from 60 to 100. I've got the bar here where I mount like all my little stuff on, and then I've swapped out the grips and like all little things. Yeah. So an average day on this bike for me depends on what I'm doing. Yeah. So if I'm just home for the day, which I work from my studio here quite a bit, then I go out maybe to get a coffee with it, or like go out for a meeting. I'll jump on this and just zip out somewhere. And depending on where I'm going in town, I'll take this to meetings. Now, if I'm going anywhere on Sukhumvit, I prefer to take the train. Okay. So I'll jump up to the train and I'll just go that way. Now, where this bike really shines for me though is like longer trips. Like if I'm on the road outside of the city, I want to go camp for the weekend, or I want to go explore a route into a different part of the country I've never been to before. This bad boy goes. So I have a job where I work with an education technology company. That's like my primary focus. They're called Globish. It's a great company. They teach English online to predominantly Thais. We also have an office in Vietnam. And I work in strategy for them. My wife and I also own a production company, a media studio, essentially a mixed media studio. So she's an artist. She does traditional Thai art, and then I do a lot of video and photography work. So lately, with cannabis being legalized in Thailand, I do a lot of photography of cannabis products, cannabis events. It's just worked out that way. Yeah. But video-wise, I make documentaries, videos mostly based around Thailand, and stories in Thailand and Asia. Yeah, so if you want to check out my stuff, then my channel is Idea Studio BKK, or Idea Studio Bangkok. And if you're interested in videos about Thailand that take maybe more documentary, historic perspective, check it out. Yep. And there's quite a few bike videos on there, so if you're interested in small bike adventures, there's a few videos that may suit you, particularly the life of Sukhumvit in Khao Yai, Thailand's first national park. Riding in Bangkok can be scary for sure, especially if you're not a seasoned rider or a very well experienced rider. It can seem overwhelming, and I get that, because sometimes just like walking in the city can seem overwhelming. And if you've walked on the sidewalks here, you know it's an adventure. Yeah. Very much like the old Pitfall game, like so that is a thing. But to me, there's nothing more rewarding. And I ride a manual bike. I love being in traffic and like having the control. And lane splitting is a thing here, and it's not in most of America. I don't know about
New Zealand's fine.
In New Zealand, you can lane split. Yeah. If you love riding, I think you'll really enjoy at least some part of riding in the city. And not everything is bumper to bumper traffic like Sukhumvit. There are stretches of road that sort of open up in the city, and once you start to explore a little bit, you're like, wow. Like, one, you're seeing all different parts of the city you would never see by foot or by taking the train or taking a bus even. And two, it's just this wonderful thing, like to be in the city on the bike and experience it. And then you have the option to say, hey, I'm on the edge of the city. Let me bang down to the Gulf. It's 30 minutes away. Yeah. And watch sunset over the Gulf of Thailand. So the way I travel on the bike is I really plan things out in advance. So I'm a map freak. I'll spend a lot of time on my maps, plotting the routes, looking for the interesting roads. And one of the things I love about traveling in Thailand is a lot of the roads have significant history about who designed them, how they were made, and where they go and why. And there's one I want to do to the south, and actually my wife's uncle was one of the engineers on that road. So I've got like this firsthand, we had lunch with them last week, I've got this firsthand knowledge about that. 2 trips I'm looking at for next year. One of them is up to the Burmese border, to the border with Myanmar, through the mountains, which will be the most mountainous trip I've taken on this bike. So I'm concerned. I gotta try to drop a few kgs before that trip. So basically, you pay your insurance. It's kind of called Powerball. Powerball. My Thai is not great pronunciation-wise. I mess up tone, but yeah. You pay your insurance every year. You pay your registration, which is like a few hundred baht. Yeah. And I have to, because it's a certain age, I have to have it checked every year. Okay. When it was new, for the first couple of years, I definitely didn't have to. Okay. And so I bring it to a small shop up at the top of my soy. They check my exhaust. They ensure that my serial number on the engine matches the serial number on my frame, and I'm good to go. Cool. Owning a bike here has challenges mechanically and has advantages. Essentially, if you've got a Honda or you've got a Yamaha or a Suzuki small bike, like a scooter, you can get it worked on at any Samchai shop. Samchai is like the most common name here. It's like the John Smith of Thailand. So you can bring it for basic work to any shop and they can wrench on it. Now, will they do a good job? Maybe, maybe not. But if you snap a chain, or you mess up your wheel, or you're running rich, you can get it wrenched and fixed fairly cheap for like 100 baht, like $3. They can do something, get you back on the road. There are shops that are better than others. Like I go to this guy Jack. He owns a place in Bangkok called SMS Sukhol Motorsports, and amazing shop, great mechanics. They do all the work on my bike now. And so if I've needed like custom parts made, they get them machined, like just to get something to fit. I've got to replace my front fender because I just extended it up, and now when the shock goes, it hits it. So they're working on something for me on that. And I would argue he's the best shop in Bangkok for sure. But I've been out in the country and had an issue and just rolled it into a shop like literally a shack. Yeah, a shack on the side of the road that also sold beer. And he worked on my bike, and I got back on the road. So it depends on what needs to be done. Like, would I want them to rebuild my engine? No. Can they help me get it back on the road if I snap a chain? Yes. So I wrench on my bike a little bit. I carry a toolkit when I go on the road, because last thing I want to do is have to rely on bringing it somewhere. And I think as a motorcyclist, it's part of your responsibility to understand how to wrench on your bike if you have to. Like I don't want to spend my time out here in the humidity of my driveway wrenching on the bike for fun. Like if I had a bigger place with an air-conditioned garage, yeah, I'd probably do a little bit more. But it's very easy and cheap to bring it somewhere. And like I said, even a shop like SMS that I think are the best mechanics in Bangkok, and they're very skilled, it's not that expensive.
I mean, you know the difference between a drum brake, disc brake, and ABS, mate, so you don't really let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Yeah. Again, there are levels of responsibility as a motorcyclist, and some people will take it seriously and some don't.
Yeah, for sure.
Some don't know ABS or discs apart. They also don't know what counter steering is.
Yeah, and some people ride with their high beam on throughout the whole of Thailand.
Yes.
Every single province.
Every single province.
Yeah. How much does it cost?
This bike absolutely sips petrol. So for me, on a month where I ride it a lot, less than 200 baht, which is $6-ish US. Actually less now. So and fuel's quite expensive at the moment. Before, I could ride a whole month, like just going place to place for 100 baht. The idea of a big bike it's appealing at times, and I was actually really close this year to buying Africa Twin. I took it for a ride, I loved it, and I realized I do still love that bike, but it's too much bike for Thailand. Like an 1100cc Africa Twin is an amazing bike. If you live in the middle of America, or you live in like Morocco, or somewhere where like you can put it to use. I can never envision myself riding more than like a 500cc bike here. Just be like, even 650s that I've ridden, and I've owned big bikes in the past. I let them go because they're not practical. They're definitely not as fuel efficient. And if it's not like purpose driven for something, then you know, what's the point? Like when I bought this in 2015, it was 54,000 baht, which is just over $1,000 at the time. And now it's like less than, like not less than, but it's like not much. But I think new now, this is 80 here. Okay. But now it comes with a 5-speed transmission, not a 4.
It's an oil filter on the side.
Yeah, if you want to check out what I do, Idea Studio Bangkok's the YouTube channel. I'm sure you'll put a link down in the description or somewhere. But again, I do mostly documentary style stuff. The video I'm working on right now is a documentary telling the story of the Asian financial crisis in 1997 through the story of the Saturn Unique Ghost Tower, which is a famous abandoned building here, and sort of the history and iterations that has gone through. And then the next one I plan to do will be me exploring and telling the story of Bangkok's urban design through a walk of 50 kilometers in one day from the top of the city back here to my house in Bangkok. Hey, thanks for watching this, guys. I'm Dana from Thailand. This is my Honda MSX 125, and you're watching this video on small bike stuff. Be sure to check them out. I've watched a ton of their videos now. Great stuff. Especially check out his KL to Bangkok bike trip. Absolutely fantastic. And a sneaky trick, if you go to I think the first comment, he pins a re-edit. Watch that too.
Awesome, man. Fantastic.
No problem.
You did my job better than me. I appreciate it, man. Let's go.